This is Randy.
This is Melanie.
And this is Jesse.
So, Outcast then. Are we doing that?
Yeah.
Let's do that. So,
Wow.
I think that it was good, but I want to know specifically what an Outcast is, and I want it now. In fact, I wanted it earlier, and they didn't give it to me, so.
Yeah. Like, we went a full volume, and I still don't know what an Outcast is.
Right. It's interesting, and I like it. I just need to know what it is.
Yeah.
So, come on. Come on,
Kirkman. Enough of this making dramatic things interesting stuff.
Yeah.
We want the crux.
I don't like apprehension. Or wait, not apprehension.
I actively enjoy apprehension.
So what we're talking about is Outcast, which is a ongoing comic book series created by Robert Kirkman and Paul Azaceta, written by Kirkman, art by Paul, first name basis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Paul Azaceta.
That's still going too, isn't it? I think I was in a
It is still going.
comic shop recently, and I saw a new issue of it on the rack, and I was like, "Oh,
They're on 40 or 40 something. It started in June of 2014 and is currently still running. And it's a supernatural horror story that chronicles Kyle Barnes. I'm not going to read any further. I don't know if this gives spoilers. So, no, yeah, it does not explain. It sets up that outcasts are a thing. But the story revolves, or it's a possession. It's like possession, people that deal with possessions, which is interesting. And it's not like there's a team of people that deal with possessions. Basically, you were introduced to this guy who had like apparently a couple experiences with what appear to be possessed people, like his mom, and it seemed like his wife.
yeah,"
I got confused a couple times because
or his kid.
Yeah, exactly. It's his mom, his wife, his kid, all three of them. Which I mean, it was
Maybe it was
mom and
the kid.
one of the two.
Yeah, because the one guy like keeps saying like, oh, he beat up his kid. He doesn't like him. So it probably was the kid. So throughout his life, he's had these like weird dealings with people who got possessed. And at the same time, he knows they live in seems like a smallish town. There's a minister or a reverend or whatever he is, who is aware of possessions and has dealt with other possessions. And so throughout this, they end up kind of working together to, I don't know, discover more about the whole situation, but also deal with a couple people who are possessed.
And the first person that he goes to help, the pastor guy, or who I think he just wants to talk to him or whatever. But they discover that when he touches people that are possessed, it makes them uncomfortable, and then when he bleeds on them,
Yeah.
then
Kind of
weird
forces-
stuff shoots out their mouth.
Yeah.
They vomit Satan on him.
Yeah. I like this too. And yeah, it tells us that Outcast is a thing and that this Larry or whatever his name was, this character is probably some type, they refer to him as Outcast. But they don't.
The demons do.
Yeah. But they don't explain what that means. They don't explain a whole lot of anything, but it's still early in the series.
Yeah.
We read volume 1.
And none of us had read this before, right?
No.
I had not.
I didn't even know it existed.
I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like maybe some type of ghost thing, which is, it's along those lines, but it's not exactly a ghost thing.
But there were some strange things about it. Like, there were people that were possessed that they thought they'd cured or whatever, and were living normal lives, but apparently were still possessed. That's strange to me. Because they're not doing weird demony things.
Possessed or like completely.
They're like,
yeah.
I'm going to continue on, going to work and doing my regular stuff even though I'm a demon. That's strange to me,
Right.
Well, like the one old lady that clearly has some kind of possession still, but the Reverend goes and delivers her meals, and she just seems normal for the most part.
Well, I mean, not that he was normal, but even the guy in the prison didn't seem like he was possessed, really. He wasn't like turning his head backwards and flopping him around in the ceiling, No,
I mean, he killed somebody, so he was in prison. But no, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, the little kid that they visit kind of acts a little bit that way.
Yeah.
was he eating his own finger or something at the beginning of the book? It's a little like, I mean, I kind of appreciated how it's put together. It's a little confusing because it sets up this kid that you don't know.
Mhm.
But then when you go to meet our main character, he's having like flashbacks to when he was a kid. So part way, I'm like, wait, is this the same kid? Like,
Yeah, me
Right.
too.
And I'm snap forward in time, or
yeah, and I think that was intentional.
Yeah.
And it worked, and it became clear. At first, it was a little confusing, but I don't, not in necessarily like a negative way, because like I said, I think it was intentional.
Yeah. And like, okay, here's another thing. What was the time frame with his mom? Because he was talking about her being a good mom when he was little, but then I'm assuming she got possessed is what happened. So was she just like kept, like abused him for like years and years and years or something as a possessed person? How do you get by years and years and years with nobody noticing you're abusing your kid?
Well, it's like you said. Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know what the time frame was, but I'm assuming it's like you said, where they don't always act possessed. So they probably just,
Well, demons are getting smart then, because
no one's around, time to abuse this kid.
Yeah.
Like, weird.
Yeah.
And are they trying to like possess the outcast? Because there's like that point where they finally visit the kid, and the kid tries to like, I don't know, like jump into him or something. And they flash back to a point where clearly his mom tried to do the same thing to him.
Is that where they're spewing the evil at him?
Yeah.
Like the black funk. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, are they trying to take, like, do they want the outcast? Is that
I thought it was just making them like spew it out and they couldn't help it. I didn't think they were trying to get him, but I could be wrong. That would make sense, I suppose, maybe. Except that if it burns them, they wouldn't think they'd want to be in him.
It looks like it was the wife that was possessed. So I'm thinking maybe she beat the crap out of the kid and he took the blame.
Yes,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Because we see a little bit of a flashback where he finds her like over the kid.
His house is disgusting.
Oh yeah.
Cockroaches and, oh.
Well, it looks
Yeah.
like he just left when his mom comed or something, and he just left it the way it was.
Yeah, so however it went down with his mother,
Mhm.
she ended up in a coma
Yeah.
in a hospital.
But if she had been possessed for years and years, then, that makes kind of more sense.
Well, her eyes were open, so comatose, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Overall, I enjoyed it. Like, I was telling, I don't know, probably both of you, this is the first, not that, I mean, most of the stuff we've read for the show has been decent. Outside of what we've read for the show, I've read very little comics in the last too long.
Right.
But this is the first comic in a long time where I was super excited to like crack it back open and
Mhm.
continue reading. And I read this much earlier in the month than I usually get to books.
Me too.
It was one of the few in a while that made me like, if it was time to eat or something, instead of throwing on TV, I'd like pull up the comic and start reading the comic and stuff while I was just chilling in the living room. And it's been a while since I dedicated time, other than like, well, I need to get this comic in before we record, dedicated time to like, relaxation time to reading comics.
Yeah.
And it kind of kickstarted, I've read at least one other thing since then. So yeah.
I
You should get more of
think
it.
Kirkman, this again highlights what Kirkman is good at, and that is like slowly unfurling like this intrigue, like of people's lives. Like some of the most interesting parts of this are like, what's an outcast, and what exactly happened with his mom, and what exactly happened with his estranged wife and child.
And what happened to the cool, nice neighbor guy that disappeared, and then his brother's all of a sudden there, who's all creepy and something's wrong with him?
And who's
Yeah,
Donnie, and why do we just randomly beat the crud out of him? And like, we're all so mad at Donnie that even the cop is ready to beat him up in broad daylight.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that because he does. He like starts wailing on him, and
But
then people are looking. He's like, "Just move along."
Isn't the cop his foster sister's husband or something like that?
Yeah.
And whatever Donnie did, he did to his foster sister. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without going into it, as in like in the comic, without going into it, they infer that
Mhm.
he did creepy things to his foster sister when they were in foster care.
Because like, that's all he had to say was like, it's Donnie. It was like, there's nothing to see here. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because maybe that's it. Because these characters are fine. They're not bad. They're interesting. Even the the Reverend has some interesting depth to him because he's gambling. Of course, he gives all his gambling, donates that to the church, but he's gambling and he has this speech about like he's a little jaded.
Yeah.
But he's not like he's still a man of God. Like
he's like, I talk to God every day. He never answers.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, we need to do the right things, but he's not. The idea that he's watching every little bad thing we do or monitoring every thought is ridiculous, So he's kind of interesting, the Reverend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the characters are interesting and well written, but it's not like they're the most fascinating characters I've ever read. So it's kind of odd to me what it is that Kirkman does to make his books so appealing.
He makes his characters normal, but then makes them normal in interesting ways.
I guess, and kind of puts them in interesting situations where then that touches on what Jesse was saying with it, like how he handles unfurling these things. Because if you look at this and Walking Dead and Invincible, and I enjoyed this quite a bit, and Walking Dead is Walking Dead, and Invincible I love. Like they're all good books, but they're very different. And so it's interesting that he can still manage to capture the same amount of attention from me with all of them, even though they're very different. But I guess I think we kind of nailed it. Is they're all like kind of normal people in
extraordinary circumstances.
Yes. So I don't know, but I liked this in particular. I was pleasantly surprised because I really like the setting. It feels like a smaller town America supernatural thing,
And I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it or I'm putting my own feelings on small towns, but it seems like one of those small towns where like the highway started up over there and now nobody comes through town anymore. And, kind of one of those
It feels a little bit to me like the small town in the movie Silver Bullet or something. I don't know why that specifically. I guess it could be any small town in a horror.
Needful Things or
Stephen King horror story, small town. Or any number of 80s horror movies that took place in like small towns, stuff like that.
Yeah, Gatlin, Nebraska.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. That works because that's where I grew up. Those are the places I grew up. So I kind of like that.
Yeah.
And they have that weird vibe of everything's fine, but there's also everybody knows there's stuff that goes on that isn't fine.
A decent segue into the art. I like the art. I think the art looks nice.
Yeah.
Because something that really strikes me is that really sells, even if maybe it's not a small town, we just don't see much of it, but what really sells that to me is just like when they're outside their houses, the trees and the look of it. It looks like a certain time of year, and it just comes across well. I think the art is pretty decent. You know
what was good for me was when he's in town, the couple times that he has been, it looks like Benson or like, the like small town, like downtowns, whatever, that are like strip malls almost. They're like not really downtown, but for them, it is. That always makes me think of small towns. Y'all ain't got no skyscrapers.
Nope. Well, Omaha's got like 2.
Yeah. So still 2. And I mean, there's other ones that are big, not that big.
That always makes me think of Iron Man and those couple of issues of Iron Man that were set in Nebraska. It was like Prometheus Gene Tech in Fremont, Nebraska. And it's like this huge corporate skyscraper type of thing, like completely plated with glass, the kind of thing you'd see in, I don't know, maybe Chicago or Minneapolis, but not Fremont.
No. It'd be like anywhere you went in Fremont, that'd be all you'd see.
Yeah, you'd see it from anywhere in town. You'd be like, oh.
It would be. I want to say the 2 tallest, the hospital and like there's one old apartment building in Fremont, I think are the 2 tallest buildings. And you can't see those from more than 4 blocks away.
Right.
Yeah. If ever an episode was apparent we're from Nebraska, it's this conversation right here.
When they get to the prison, that did make me think of The Walking Dead a little bit. Just the way that the prison's drawn. I was like, oh, is this the same prison from The Walking Dead?
Oh, that'd be fun.
Huh, that would be.
What if
West Virginia?
I never finished Invincible. I don't want to.
You didn't?
No, I haven't.
I didn't realize that you hadn't. I thought you had a long time ago.
Uh-uh.
You don't want to?
No, it ended.
Yeah.
So I just haven't I've been meaning
Oh.
to.
Well, I want to
I
finish
just
it too,
haven't.
but I mean, yeah, I'm farther behind than you are. I don't know why I assumed that you had because you liked it so much. I just assumed you read it all until it was done.
It's still going as far as I'm concerned. I should read it because where I left off, of course, you know that series. Where I left off is,
I don't know it.
did you read? You read some of it.
I read the first 3 or 4 books or whatever, but
Well, it never leaves off in a good place. And where I last left off was not a good place, but that's
I
just
know.
the series.
I don't even really don't tell me anything about it because you seemed really upset about it, and I don't want to feel that yet.
It's a roller coaster. It seems so fun.
Yeah.
I'm very curious as to where this series goes.
I know I really do want to read more.
Getting back on track. Yeah, that was the thing. This was one of the, I mean, there's always like when we read Saga or, any number of other books where I'm like, I would totally read further. I'd be interested.
I do want to read more.
This, I was like, I could read further and just not say anything. Like, this, I was like, I really want to. I could find volume 2. They don't have to know.
Well, why
Well,
would you
I
not
think I
tell me?
have volume 2 if you need it from Humble Bundle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We need it. We need it.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoyed this quite a bit. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, the story is pretty much what we laid out. There's other little details, but you can read it for that. Again, the art, I like the art. The art's nice. I don't have any specific things to jump in on for it.
Yeah.
Because most of the story is, it's not superheroes. It's not like, I mean, there's possession and there's some like creepy art and demon stuff, but it's not like there's not zombies, it's not monsters. So
It's story driven and
it's regular day life for
Yeah.
the most part. So the art is good. It portrays that well. It's not like super stylized. It's good comic book art, but it's just like regular people just kind of doing stuff.
yeah. Well, maybe when they open up a hellhole, it'll change. But
When they
Yeah.
open a hellhole. Oh, those Russians. That's a callback to last episode.
Was that last episode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to remember to leave all that in. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And volume 1's pretty short. It was a fairly quick read. Like I know I said I read it in a couple segments because I'm busy. So
yeah, I read it all in one.
did you?
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend this, and I'm very curious as to where it's going.
And we're doing a review, but really all we gotta say is Kirkman is good, and that's it.
He does things that people like.
Yeah. Kirkman is successful, so that's good. I'm glad. He gets recognition. I think Walking Dead definitely helps in it, get hit. At least I don't know. Walking Dead was a huge series in comic form. Almost 10 years it seems like before there was the TV show. So I think Kirkman, for me, even before I really dove into comics, there was name recognition.
Right.
So I think he definitely, and with the TV show and Skybound Entertainment and other TV shows, he's successful. So that's good, but he's consistently good in that.
It's really good at psychology, man. Like the way that this first volume ends, where he's basically confronting this empty room that, they show the door a few times throughout the volume, and they're like, you don't know what happened in there, but you kind of get an idea something bad happened in there. And then at the end of the book, he's like, he walks in, and this is the room where his mom attacked him. And he's like, you can't scare me anymore. You're just an empty room.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh man, yeah. It feels very final for the end of a volume, but it also is very intriguing for what's happening next. It's like, where do we go now?
That's true. There is a character arc. There's character development there, but it still leaves you you knowing virtually nothing.
Right.
So it's interesting to have progression, yet still so much is you don't know anything.
Yeah.
I guess my point is Kirkman, he's not underrated, but he's so synonymous with Walking Dead that I wonder if he gets recognition for non-Walking Dead stuff, because he totally should.
He's kind of like this era's Frank Miller type of character, where he's really well known for certain things, like The Dark Knight Returns. He's really well known for Sin City. He's really well known for a handful of things that people really like. Now granted, now he's known for a few flops too, but Kirkman is kind of like he's kind of like that in that he's known for a handful of things that people really dig on.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a certain style about him, and you know you're going to get a Kirkman vibe.
It does all kind of fall into the same vibe. Even something as colorful and seemingly fun as Invincible, like it still falls into like it gets heavy, and it works on a character level, and it works in like the genre level of whatever it is. Obviously, like he likes horror stuff. Just the consistency amongst very varied projects is pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, consistent, a consistent level of quality too. Like, because even though this is different and probably isn't getting the same level of notice as the other two, I have the feeling that this is really good. And yeah, it does. It inspires me to want to read more.
And the fact that it's still going, it's 2019, it started in 2014, and it is still ongoing. So that's he's able to handle those long ongoing series and keep them, I guess, fresh.
Right.
And as we,
even when there's zombies,
fairly
I
recently,
keep zombies fresh. Come on.
yeah. And well, even in that case, as it's fairly recently revealed, or at least to us, because I think Pete Mitchell broke the news to us. So I don't know how long it was known before that, but
I don't know for sure.
he feels like he doesn't know where to go. Like he's kind of done with Walking Dead, so he's going to end the series. So, he does have an endpoint that he'll get to where he's like, I don't know what to do, so let's wrap it up. Invincible wrapped up last year before, something like that.
Yeah. Would you recommend it?
Yeah.
I would.
Who are we going to give this to?
Not my grandma.
Not your grandma.
Not your This is not your grandma's, Kirkman.
Well, now, unlike something like Invincible, like I just haven't read enough of this to say, I think this would appeal to most comic book readers. Invincible, even though it's a superhero comic, I think would appeal to people who are not necessarily into superhero comics.
I agree.
So I can't say, like, I can say, if you're into horror comics, definitely check this out because it seems really good. It's got horror themes, but I haven't read enough to be able to say for sure whether it would appeal to non-horror fans.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah,
I would reserve telling people that are super religious yet. Until I know where it goes.
Because this is a very fluid religious theme.
Yeah.
And some people probably would be turned off by that.
So possession stories for me don't work most of the time, and I kind of blame The Exorcist because The Exorcist nails it so well. And to me, and it's mostly been movies. Any other movie, or possession story movie that I've come across feels like it wants to be The Exorcist, and it's not.
Yeah, like like Keanu Stintine.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even like those super popular series of, well, I don't know how popular they are now, but they've spawned so many sequels. The modern popular horror movies.
The possession of
The Conjuring and all that.
Oh,
that
sure.
goes into a possession area where I'm just saying, oh, geez, it just seems cheesy to me. It feels like an inferior attempt at something that was been done well, much better decades before.
Yeah.
So anytime, like even with this, I was like, I seen that, I was like, oh, this is going possession route. Oh, I don't know. And then the fact that like there seems to be a lot of people possessed. Like they come across them pretty easily. So I was a little nervous about that, but I'm still on board. Like it didn't necessarily it clearly kind of has its own angle where it has its own rules. It's not just the standard possession. There's like, what's the Outcast?
They have an agenda, it seems like.
Yeah.
That especially with the long game. Like I've been possessed for years, but nobody can tell. They're planning something and they're working on something, I feel.
And the fact that like obviously this guy's been involved with a whole lot of them. It's not just a coincidental like, oh, there just happens to be a lot of possessions. Like there's something.
Yeah.
There's a reason
They're
for
targeting him or something.
Yeah. So even with all that, even with my bias, my possession bias, it still works for me so far.